I trust everybody had a good holiday weekend, um, and everybody was safe and sound. Let's go. But before we jump into the stats, I thought it was kind of fitting. Like, okay, so let me get my screen up here.
Oh, okay.
We're going to go with a window
And
share.
fun article on land in America. Just reading it.
You did. All right. So America 250 years old. And I thought it might be interesting to start with this thought process of real estate in America. And obviously, I think most people on the call know the story, right? Like, you know how the America became to be, and this, that, and the other. But yet, I think it's really fitting in terms of how we sell real estate. And Richard, I mean, obviously, 250 years ago, nobody owned the land, right? Uh, and and then there's politicalness to that and all that stuff. But uh, we make a living and a career off selling really the land, right? Like we sell real estate owned property uh, that nobody owned 250 years ago. What are your thoughts? I just thought it'd be an interesting way to start today, is what I thought.
Yes, we sell a product that no one's manufacturing any longer. One way to look at it, why it keeps going up in price.
Yeah,
But
sure.
this was an interesting article, Brett. For the history part, I would hope that everybody learned all of that going through school. If not, that's a bigger discussion that we should be having. Uh, but getting down to who actually owns the greatest amount of land in this country, that I found interesting.
Yeah, well, tell us. I'm over
Well,
here getting spoiled.
um, let me see if I can pull that back up again. We all know that Ted Turner, and now his estate, was one of the largest landowners in the country. Ted Turner actually owned 2 million acres of property, and yet he was, I believe, number four on the list. Number one on the list, and unless you pull it up, I can't find it on my
All
phone
right,
quick
I'll
enough,
pull it up.
was a guy who owns a number of sports teams and has just been investing in real estate almost his whole life. Um, it's pretty well right down at the bottom, Brett. Um, I believe number three. There you go. Um, Stan Kroenke, commercial real estate, the Rams, Nuggets, Avalanche, Arsenal, and and marrying a Walmart heir. I didn't pick that one up. That's wonder
Yeah.
where the money comes from. Um, number two, lumber company, which certainly makes sense. Number three, John Malone actually was in media, but has been buying land over the years. Ted Turner, we know about him and the Reed family. Same thing, timber business. So three of the five biggest people intentionally invested in the land. It's an interesting thought. When you've got that kind of money, what are you putting it back into? What has the largest impact on people? And it's the land.
For land. You know, Gary always talks about buy the dirt and wait, or buy the dirt and hold.
Well, yep,
Um, Obviously, 250 years, nobody's going to live that long. But if you care about legacy, they might, right?
yep. A
Okay.
number of years ago, Brett, I was up in Atlanta and was at a function. Was actually UNICEF. They were honoring Ted Turner, and he's the only one in that list. He bought most of his land for conservation purposes. He did not buy all that land to make money. He bought it for conservation and, as you said, bison restoration. And we now have herds and herds of bison in the Western states because of him.
Yep. Wild and crazy, sir. All right, let's jump to the numbers. We're going to share this tab instead. Do you see the numbers now?
Yes.
Okay. So Broward County single family, Broward single family. We have 659. So we continue to have less and less inventory coming on the market. Is that a good or a bad thing, Richard?
Depends what side of the coin you're on.
Okay.
My guess is if you're a first-time home buyer, it means the inventory is tightening up for single-family homes. It's going to be tougher for you to find what you're looking for. To delve deeper into it, we'd have to look at specific price points as to what's not coming onto the market right now. But this is very typical this time of year.
Yeah, and if I'm sitting with let's talk about conversations for a minute. If I got a seller and the property hadn't sold, this is probably a good thing for that seller. There's less new competition coming on the market. It's slowing down in terms of competition. So therefore, we may have a window of time. If we get the price right, we can move this house, right? For a buyer, hey, you might have had a lot of choices come April and May, yet those choices are getting less and less. So you need to up your motivation and work on making your challenge a little more urgent to find the house, right? Any thoughts before I think inventory slowing down. What do y'all tell your clients? Don't tell me everybody's still hungover from the weekend.
Come on, guys, come off mute and talk to us.
A great script is, the good news is there's not that much inventory. The bad news is there's not that much inventory. But if you're motivated to buy a property, we can find you one in less time because there's less to look at. I mean, that's not the words you say, but that's realistically what's out there.
Yeah, that's good. Anybody else?
Be patient.
Patient, yes. Well, isn't that part of the game, Joy?
Yes.
I won't ask you years, but I think you learn that the first couple of years in real estate. Like, you know what? I have this nervous energy,
True.
and then all of a sudden you just learn it's a game of resilience and patience. Right?
My longest follow-up was 7 years, but they bought.
They bought. All right.
Here's Brett, before you go on, here's another quick thought looking at the numbers. So for a number of weeks now, we're seeing less and less, not dramatic. This week was more dramatic, but less and less coming on the market. However, when you look at under contract and pending, those numbers are almost identical within a couple. Under contract, 10 more, pending 8 less, 8 less. So about the same. So does that mean that what's on the market is pricing itself properly? And it's the people, well, let's see what can happen, who are not putting their homes on the market?
Yeah. Maybe.
Hey, Brad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a bunch of the people who I meet with regularly, when I'm looking at their numbers, and I'm seeing that they're getting very close to asking price. So they're the ones at least that I meet with, they're pricing them right. But it also tells us that if the inventory is low, it could also be a great time to sell since you have less competition.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think you'd spin the story, whatever makes sense.
Exactly.
Every story has a pro and a con, or a positive and negative, or there's always an optimistic point of view, whether you're a buyer or seller. You just got to figure out that optimistic point of view and create that script to create the urgency, right? All right, let's go. We're never going to get through anything today. All right, so under contract, 185, 135, kind of consistent. There were more here, 10 more here, 10 less here, kind of holding the own. That, to Richard's point, 283 closed out. in the last 7 days. So if you remember, we were talking last week, because the way the end of the month fell, there were 3 days at the beginning of last week that were still part of last month. So this actually looks like a really strong end of June closeout. At least Broward County single family. And we talked here, but let's look through the other counties and other categories. So if I go to Broward condo, same deal. The inventory is slowing down. You can see that it's been falling for 4 weeks. 111 went under contract, better than last week. 80 are pending. So that's 191. We're coming down a little bit here as well. But they had a big closing week too at 179. So still strong end of July or end of June closing. We run out to Miami-Dade, single family, 568, same story, inventory coming down. 115 went under contract, 155 pending, considerably less than last week, but not too far off the weeks prior. 200 closings. That's the largest closing week they've had since May 18th. So pretty strong end of the month closings. Condos. We had 768, same story. Under contract 72. Lower, both weeks have been lower. 120 pending. Both these numbers are much lower than we've been seeing in Miami-Dade condos. And then 146 still strong closeouts for the end of June. If I run to Palm Beach, single family, 606, big drop in listings coming on the market. And Richard, I think we need to put a pin in this for a second because we're coming off a holiday weekend too. And that holiday weekend disrupts the numbers. Now, I don't think it completely disrupts the numbers, but it certainly does disrupt some of the numbers in terms of listings coming on. And heck, even the real estate agents are on vacation, right?
That's been one of our jobs, Brett, is for as far back as I remember, is trying to keep our agents engaged instead of taking vacation, because it's like the world shuts down for a holiday. And guys, this is the time that, you should be with your family, you should be enjoying yourself, but it's really a time that you want to jump in and focus because everybody else is on vacation.
Yep. 185 under contract, 69 are pending. So typically first of the month, the pending number goes down because they slide to closed, right? But this was a big end of month closing too, 317, 292. We saw those numbers. You could look back end of May and it was 333 and 264. So pretty similar numbers for the last 2 weeks of the month in Palm Beach. If I look at Palm Beach condo, 503, another drop. 108 went under contract, which is a big number compared to last week. And then 64 pending and a big end of month closing. So real quick, just random thoughts on the numbers, guys. Are you feeling it?
I am.
Yes. All right. All right. We will move on then. Okay. Lone Wolf's new CEO on prop tech. I thought I already logged in. There we go. Okay. He's talking about prop tech super app dreams. I think what this article is speaking to, one, if you're not aware, Lone Wolf is the product that we're all moving to, replacing DocuSign. And, when this has happened over time, we originally were with Dotloop, and Dotloop's owned by Zillow. And so there was a nervous energy around all our data being owned by Zillow. So they moved us at that point in time to DocuSign, which was agnostic to all industries. DocuSign's a more universal product. And now we're moving to this product called Lone Wolf, which I assume all the training's been happening. Tell me if not. But Lone Wolf is a real estate specific document management tool. And I found it interesting because I think the real estate industry is nervous that technology is going to take over someday. And this kind of super app dreams is what he was talking about. And he actually went out on the limb and said, I actually don't think the future is some super app. And I thought that was kind of good news to us, one, and two, an interesting perspective of a CEO that's in the real estate space, saying we're not going to have this app that takes over the industry, right? Like, I think they've been talking about an app taking over the industry for 20 years, like transaction management apps to now it's all about home management apps. I don't see an app taking over the industry, but I really put this up here to remind everybody about Lone Wolf. Any thoughts, Richard?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just FYI, I think this is funny, but just keeping you in the loop. We've talked about the Chicago MLS pulled all the listing feeds from Zillow. Then the judge came in and reinstated those listing fees or feeds, and Compass and MRED, which is the Chicago MLS, is trying to force it to go to arbitration. And Zillow is saying, we don't want to go to arbitration. And they're in a court battle right now. So this is still a hot topic going down, just FYI. All right. I thought this was interesting, and I think we need to just have a conversation about this. So inflation's at 4.2%. And when inflation is high, we ran through this over the previous couple of years. The Federal Reserve, their one lever that they have is they can change the Federal Reserve rate around every 60 to 90 days. I actually, I go back and forth in my mind on whether or not I believe the Fed is going to raise the rate. Some days I believe that they will. Some days I think they'll wait and hold and see if inflation naturally comes down when oil starts to flow. But we had a positive jobs report come out. And what Logan on Housing Wire is saying is he thinks there may be one rate hike in 2026, and then it should stable it out. I don't know if I believe all that, but the reality is I think you've got to brace for this, because if the Federal Reserve comes out and says we're raising the Federal Reserve rate a quarter point, it doesn't naturally translate to higher mortgage rates, although the consumer believes that it does. And you'll have a lot of conversations and talking points if that happens. Make sense? Any thoughts on this?
Just the news that, he's come out, and it's not the first time, saying that there might be one or two rate hikes by the end of this year. That should be a conversation you're having with the potential buyers. get them off the fence now. And actually, you always pull up the rates, Brett, and I believe from what I read this morning, rates were the lowest that they've been now in a couple of months. So we've kind of like hit a little bit of a low. And Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, this is the time to be out there before something happens that the rates go back up a little bit.
Right. Okay. I mean, I can pull up the rates. We did have a rate come down. Um, well, I'd say that it went back up Friday, but it came down to 6.45 last week before the holiday, and then it finished the week at 6.6. Um, but I do think you're going to see some lower rates this week. Um, but nonetheless, right? What tab are you seeing?
There you go. You just switched to the jobs report.
Okay, there's the jobs report. All right, moving on. Okay, this tab, America's 250 is a turning point for American homeownership, committing to a more affordable, accessible, and resilient housing market for the next generation. Um, I think the next 250 years is going to be about keeping America affordable. The first 250 years was about wealth creation and the land grab and all those things. And I still think there's an abundance of land, not in South Florida, but in America, that people will build real estate on. Yet I think the next phase of home ownership is going to be navigating how to keep it affordable. We were talking last week, if the median home price today is 450, by the year 2050 it's going to be over $1 million, which is freaky if you just think about that. But at the same time, 24 years of 4% appreciation creates a lot of wealth too. So anybody that doesn't own real estate today is crazy, one. And two, um, it's a good talking point around wealth creation, but at the same time, I do believe affordability is going to be a big challenge uh, in America in the next 20, 30 years. And the fear is, if you've ever studied real estate, if you've studied real estate in London, England, the entire city has become unaffordable only to the wealthy. And that's a concern, right? Because it takes all different types of income earners to run and manage a city. And the people that want to work in a city have to have affordable housing close by, affordable to them. Otherwise, it really hurts the city, right? So, anyway, moving on.
Brett,
Yeah.
you hear about these predictions and you think, well, how can they calculate that, or how can, because that's obviously not my thing, but it is their thing. Yesterday's newspaper had an editorial that in 1976 the prediction was that rentals for a 2-2 would be 3,000 a month, and I'm like, holy cow, they were right. So
I mean, you
people
could just
can predict.
you just do the math. If you just go to ChatGPT or Claude and say, "What's a $450,000 house today? Worth today? What will it be worth in 250? I mean, in 2050, at a 4% averaged annual appreciation, it shows you it's over $1 million." And we all, and at some point in time, we used to make fun of our parents when they would say, "Oh, I bought my first house for $26,000 or whatever," and that number was just so wild. And then at some point in time, you become the parent, and then you start making the statements. But the reality is, everything moves forward over time, and there's strategy to that, right? All right. Sorry, guys. I'm on a new computer that nothing is signed in on. Hang on 2 seconds. Sign in here. Here we go. All right. So the housing market's lock-in effect is taking a turn. So what is the lock-in effect? If you're new, this has been a thing for the last 3 years. The 3%, 2.5% interest rate environment. People owned all this real estate with 3% interest rates, and there's a lot of people that still do. But we were dealing with what's called this locked in effect, which means it made no financial sense for them to sell and then go buy at a 7% interest rate, or so they thought. But this article in the South Florida Business Journal is talking specific to this. It's saying the housing market's lock-in effect is taking a turn. More than half of homebuyers cite affordability as the biggest barrier to purchasing. 71% of prospective buyers expect prices and interest rates to fall. I don't know that I agree with this, but this is the consumer belief. Now, I do believe interest rates will fall. I don't expect prices to fall in South Florida. I think we've seen prices come down a little bit on condos, but we're not seeing prices coming down on single family property. We're not seeing prices coming down on luxury condos and luxury single family. But typical down payments dropped to 15% in March from 16% a year ago, meaning people are holding their cash a little more. They may choose to use leverage instead of paying cash for things. They may put less money down. Why is this important for you to know? I think sellers, when they take an offer on a property, look at financial terms, right? Like how much are they putting down? What's their commitment level? Blah, 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 blah. The other thing is, it doesn't necessarily mean that a buyer is less strong if they're putting less money down. They may strategically be holding cash in today's market. And I think you need to be aware of that. I don't know. What you read this, Richard? What do you think?
Actually, of all of the articles today, I think that this is probably the most important one. It brings up a whole lot of different points to talk about. What you have highlighted there, 71% of prospective buyers expect prices and interest rates to fall. What's the old saying? Hope is not a strategy. Yep. There's, you ask somebody your expectation, where are you getting your expectation from? And those two things, prices and interest rates, to me are actually opposite. Because if interest rates fall, you're going to see more buyers jumping into the market, more demand for the same listings that are out there, and prices are going to go up. So you can't really have both at the same time. It's a little bit further on, you're talking about the lock-in effect, where people who bought their properties at 3-4% interest rates don't want to move because, what I'm going to buy is going to be 6.5%, and blah, 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 blah. And yet the survey says 52% of current homeowners surveyed said they expect to buy another home, with 22% of them planning to buy within the next year, which is up from 15% last year. I've always looked at it for a long time. The longer something stays where it is, and let's use 6.5% interest rates as the new norm. For the first while, people said, I can't afford to buy at that. It's, I want the rates to come down to 4% before I buy again. But you know what? After a period of time, it becomes the norm. It becomes expected, and people are coming back into the market. And that's what we're seeing now. People that have been locked into their home, I believe this is exactly what's happening. They want to move. They want to be closer to the grandkids. They want to be closer to work. They need a bigger house. They need a smaller house. People are going to move, and they're not going to stay locked into where they were just because of interest rates. There are other factors that tie into this. And to me, Brett, that's what this entire article is all about, is all of the different factors that are affecting our market right now.
There you go. So you know how to get the articles. Go ahead, Dave.
I just always say to people when they talk about the interest rates, open your wallet and give me your credit cards. What's your interest rate on this? You're paying 18% on a pizza. You're paying 27% on your iPhone. It's not about the rate.
No, people buy because they want to.
I agree. It's motivation, right? And maybe we're not asking the right questions and we're letting them live in their head. But one of the goals of this call is to give you the dialogue, to give you the scripts, to give you the talking points when you encounter a buyer that's like, man, I want to buy, but I don't want to pay 6.5% on an interest rate. Interesting. Tell me more. Why do you say that? Well, I just feel like I'm giving my money away. Interesting. Tell me more. Right? You just take them through the dialogue. But if you're not asking the questions and you don't have the knowledge of how to answer correctly, you're not doing your part in giving good consultation right now. All right. Happy Monday. I'm glad 80 something people showed up the day after a holiday weekend. That's good news. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brett.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you, Brett.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.